So I am delighted now to speak to a man who has held numerous roles in global health and development, the former Secretary General of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He currently serves as chair of the board for the Kofi Annan Foundation and co-chair of the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board. Please welcome Mr. Elhadj As Sy. Thank you very much indeed. So, look, we have to start with the global context, and we've heard what everyone's been saying. We've heard everyone's concerns here. Dr. Tedros said yesterday that at exactly the moment that member states need a strong WHO, it's being challenged. The WHO can't do everything member states have asked it to do with the resources available. How do you think this changing landscape is affecting the way the world thinks about health?
Yeah, thank you very much. But I can't resist, thinking of what it first means, for people, for individuals, for families, and then for communities. I've worked a lot in very challenging environment in humanitarian settings, and where we experience similar crises, where you have to make worst choices. A choice, in a conflict zone or a disaster zone of who to feed or not, who to treat, or not, who to send to school or not. And those choices are made often, by families. And then later on, we see some of the consequences, that maybe girls are disadvantaged, because, boys then were kind of preferred. But these are horrible, difficult choices, they're being made. So in the current situation, before even we talk about, what the views of world leaders are, we always have to keep in mind, what those kind of decisions, will have as an impact on individuals, families, and communities. And we then, as actors, quite often at time, will have also to make those choices. Halving food portion, is becoming almost a normal thing, to do. In health, you even look at, doses, being of medicines, being have, many things, that are just strategies for survival, that necessarily shouldn't be. Now, you ask me the vision of world leaders. First of all, I don't think that there is one view of world leaders. There are different views, and those views are sometimes also contradictory. So world leaders also change their views. They look like, insomniac people who try to sleep on one side and then on the other side, and then back on the other side. And we see the same world leaders, that were at the origin of many health, initiatives that had, great impact, positive, impact, globally, changed, their mind. And the reasons behind those changes, are not often informed by, we're talking about science, we're talking about data, we're talking about evidence. But most of the time, those decisions are not informed by any, of that. World leaders sometimes also make promises they don't deliver on. And then world leaders weaponize health, which is, terrible, and that we are seeing that, today. But in the midst of all of that, we have a critical number, that are trying, to reach out, to each other, trying, to find solutions, to problems, trying also to create spaces, where, things, can happen.
It was heartening, actually, that we saw in the past few weeks and months different leaders reaffirming their commitment to global health and saying that they were going to step up.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the point, that I wanted to make by concluding. So, we have that. We need more of those. We need, a critical mass of those leaders. And then we make sure, that also they are supported, in that line, and make sure also that they do not only talk about it, but they do it. And that's where I think, we will have to look at not only leadership and then the leaders, but also look at citizenship. There are citizens there, who also put world leaders, where they are. And they should hold them accountable. So active citizenship should go together, with accountable leadership. And that will be the basis maybe for, the movements, that we would like to see happening out of, our interaction and discussions.
You're not afraid to be quite outspoken, and I know that you have previously called for bold investment in health systems. But how do you think that that's going to be achieved, given the current climate?
Well, I think, first of all, it has to be achieved through, delivering on the promises we make, all of us. And here, nobody should be left off the hook. So, in my continent, almost now 20, 25 years ago, that heads of states and governments, come together, made a very bold statement. We're going to be investing 13%, of GDP, on health. 25 years later, I think with the fingers of maybe two hands, I can count, those who are getting anywhere close to it. But where does the accountability lie? And then we are surprised, that then trust is eroded, and then there is no trust, between citizens and leaders, and then trust, in the global health, etc. And as I said before, at the same time, so globally, world leaders, come together, were so bold, and then even created many of the institutions, that we are very familiar, about today, and then they are coming together, the same ones. And I've been around enough, old enough, to see the same people around the same table saying things that contradict, each other every other 5 years. And then where is then that accountability? So, but in the middle of all of that, again, I think it is silent and not very visible, a community of carers, what I call a community of carers that are coming from all sectors, from government, from civil society, from private sector. We have to nurture that community. We have to nurture it, we have to support it, and then we have to expand the base, for, if not all of us, most of us, join that kind of a movement.
Do you think now more than ever it is important that outside of government and outside of finance ministers and global institutions, that we bring those key stakeholders together, industry, innovators, civil society, scientists? When we were during the panel, Ricardo mentioned unexpected partnerships in new places that perhaps we hadn't thought of before. Is that going to be one of the things that takes us forward?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't believe a partnership that we have not heard before. We have heard all those partnerships before. How many times we said now more than ever before? So,
yeah, fair point.
We said that, when we have an HIV epidemic. We said that, when we had COVID. We said that when we have Ebola. We said that, when we have Mpox. We said that, and again, more than ever, before. So, and I think what we've been saying and then proposing, in all those shocks and crises, remains still valid. So, frankly, not much new. If only we were doing what we know already. If only we're doing, and then practicing, concretely many of the good proposals, that are on the table, and then suggestion and commit to that. I think we will already will have gone a very long way, until maybe we see something that is, extremely new that is coming our way.
Do you feel that we'll come out of this more resilient?
We don't have a choice, frankly. We never lose an opportunity of a good crisis, we used to say. And some of the, boldest, kind of initiatives and expression of leadership and courage, came out of, crisis, as well. And there will always be, those who are creating the problems, and then there will always be those, who want to be part of the solution. And then those who find at all levels. We find them in the communities, that are carrying the diseases in their own bodies. Think of, the network of HIV, people living with HIV, how they just contributing in transforming the response, to the disease. We've seen that, at the level of community leaders, faith-based organizations and government actors, philanthropists, and all of that. And I think that is the really diversity of actors and then leaders. And if we talk about leadership and then global leaders, we should make sure that they are all included, in that. Because when it comes, to health issues, again, we can be here in Geneva or any other part in the world. At the end of the day, it happens in communities. And if it has to be tackled and then solved, it's going to be in those very communities. How can we then nurture that leadership all the way from the bottom up to the top, and then create the safe spaces and an enabling environment, for that to happen, particularly in a fragmented world where it is so difficult, to agree not on anything. I'm delighted, that we have a pandemic treaty. But my God, if I think that the pain it took 3 years long, to address an emergency, well, we can also question ourselves, on, the kind of a sense of emergency, the sense of urgency that we are communicating when we would like to, address, emergency. All of that, again, to say, yeah, let's maybe nurture that critical mass that want to be part of the solution.
Very quick final question. I know that you've now been appointed the Chancellor of the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, which means you could have the next generation of health leaders coming through your hands. What would be your message to them?
Well, the wonderful Kofi Annan used always to say, you're never too young to lead and never too old to learn. And, being the Chancellor of Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, my gosh, how much do I learn every day, from this younger generation. I see passion, I see commitment, I see hope, I see impatience, rightly so. I see sometimes anger, to them. And I think all of that, move them, and I think they will move, if you're moved, you act. And I think I'm seeing there is a lot, before, advising them on anything, that's what I'm learning from them. I think we all could be more passionate, more impatient, more hopeful, and then sometimes, express, our anger towards, finding, solutions, to the challenges we face. So it is a constant, mutual learning, between us. And every time I'm in the middle of those younger people, it is so refreshing, frankly. And, whatever you can share with them also to complement, fine, but it is a mutual learning process, that we're engaging.
A mutual learning process. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Elhadj As Sy.